My wife caught the chef calling me a filthy pig, then she shut the restaurant down, using her legal power. Before I tell you what actually happened, please like and subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. My name is David, and at 45 years old, I've spent most of my life with grease under my fingernails and a level of pride that doesn't come from a bank account, but from a job well done. I spent 20 years in the heavy machinery business before my knees started giving out. And like the men I grew up with, I learned early on that your word is your bond and your hands are your resume. I've always been a blue-collar man, a fixer by nature, much like my father before me, who taught me that if you can't build it or fix it, you don't truly own it. My wife, Sarah, is a different story. She's a high-powered attorney, the kind of woman who treats her legal expertise like armor and her sharp wit like a weapon. When the situation calls for it, we're an unlikely pair to some the grease monkey and the legal shark. But we built a life of authentic love in a house we renovated with our own four hands. However, the world Sarah operates in often looks at people like me with a certain kind of fake sweetness that hides a deep-seated elitism. The night our lives changed started as a celebration of our 20th anniversary. Sarah had booked a table at Lasso Door, the kind of place with marble floors so shiny you could see your reflection, and where the menus don't even have prices because if you have to ask, you don't belong. I had pressed my best shirt twice and polished my boots until they looked as respectable as a pair of working man's shoes can look. I felt like I was tracking mud just by existing in the same room as the crystal chandeliers. We were seated near the kitchen swinging doors. I noticed immediately that our table was wobbly, a simple fix for a man who carries a small toolbox of knowledge in his head. I reached down to adjust the leveling foot, just trying to be useful in a place where I felt like a disaster waiting to happen. That's when I heard him. Chef Julian, a man whose reputation for refinement was as inflated as his soulfuls, was standing just behind the service door talking to the head waiter. He didn't know I was right there, head down, fixing his furniture. That man at table 4. Julian sneered, his voice carrying that unmistakable tone of disgust. He looks like he crawled out of a trench. He's a filthy pig in a designer room. I hope he doesn't do anything to embarrass the establishment before the main course. Honestly, some people have no ambition, no refinement. They just live in their little world and expect us to tolerate their presence. I froze, holding the table leg, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. I was being talked about like a problem to be managed, not a guest who had paid for a seat at the table. But before I could even process the shame burning my face, I looked at Sarah. She had heard every word. Her eyes, usually warm and full of sentimental love for me, went cold, the kind of cold I'd only seen when she was about to dismantle a corrupt CEO in court. Sarah didn't make a scene immediately. Like a professional, she waited. I wanted to leave, to pack up my pride and walk out into the night, but Sarah stayed my hand. "David," she whispered, her voice so calm it was terrifying. "Stay in your seat. We are going to see exactly how deep this refinement goes." I've learned over the years that silence can keep the peace, but Sarah taught me that silence can also be a trap for those who think they are untouchable. As the night progressed, I started paying closer attention to the perfect facade of the restaurant. Behind the white roses and the classical music, there was a sense of chaos. I saw the way Julian treated his staff with a fake sweetness for the guests, and a face twisted in disgust for the busboys. It reminded me of the worst kind of contractors I'd dealt with on job sites, the ones who spend more on the BMW in the lot than the safety of the crew. Sarah, meanwhile, was on her phone. I thought she was checking the mails, but she was pulling legal armor out of her digital archives. She was the lead investigator for the city's Commerce and Safety Board, a fact Julian clearly hadn't bothered to check when he looked at my work boots. "You know," Sarah said, loud enough for the neighboring tables to hear. "It's interesting how a place that prides itself on social circles and family priorities can be so negligent about the foundations of its business." Chef Julian emerged from the kitchen, his chin raised like a queen addressing subjects. He approached our table with a tight smile, the kind that makes you feel contaminated just by being near it. "Is there a problem, madam?" Perhaps the rustic nature of your companion is making the atmosphere feel less than professional. Sarah stood up. She didn't look like a wife on an anniversary. She looked like an avenging angel in silk. My husband, she began, her voice carrying to the back of the room where the other diners sat in stunned silence, is a man who built our home with his own hands. He has more blue-collar loyalty in his pinky finger than you have in your entire fraudulent establishment. Julian laughed a real laugh, small but unmistakably amused, as if he'd been waiting to deliver the final blow. Please, this is a place of real success. Your husband is a disaster in a room full of stars. Is that so? Sarah replied. She pulled a manila folder of digital documents onto her tablet screen. Because according to these records, your star is about to fall. I've been looking into your business contacts and financial records for 3 months, Julian. I just wanted to see if the man matched the paperwork. The room went dead silent. The string quartet of clinking silverware died in the middle of a note. Sarah began to list the secrets behind their teeth that this restaurant had been hiding for months. You owe $340,000 to various creditors, she stated, her voice echoing off the marble floors. You've been using fraudulent practices to keep this place afloat, including skimming from the employee family trust and using property you don't even own as loan collateral to save yourself from bankruptcy. Julian's face went white as paper. He tried to push back, snapping about ungrateful people who don't understand appropriate behavior. But Sarah was just getting started. But the worst part, Julian, she said, leaning in, is the violation of sanctuary. My husband noticed the health violations in your kitchen while he was fixing your table. You're running a contaminated kitchen, using expired insurance policies and forged safety certificates to stay open. I stood up beside her. I didn't feel like a filthy pig anymore. I felt the certainty that comes when you finally see the truth about people who think they are better than you. I looked at Julian, a man who had spent 30 years being a bully, now looking like a cornered animal. I was going to fix your table for free, I told him quietly, because that's what fathers and workers do. We fix things. But you can't fix a soul that's as weak and cruel as yours. Just then, the front doors of the restaurant opened. It wasn't more guests. It was a team from the health department and the city auditor's office, accompanied by 2 patrol cars whose lights painted the shiny marble in red and blue. Mrs. Sarah, one of the officers said, "We've finished the preliminary search of the basement storage. You were right. It's a disaster down there. Stolen goods, forged property transfer papers for his other ventures, and enough health violations to shutter a stadium. The scene was pure chaos. Guests were reaching for their phones to capture the disaster of the refinement they had paid hundreds of dollars for." Julian tried to push past everyone to leave, but the officers made it clear he wasn't going anywhere. As they led him away in red and blue lights, I saw Sarah's face. She wasn't happy. She was heartbroken that a place that should have been a celebration of love and commitment was actually built on a pretty facade that hid the worst problems. "David," she said, taking my hand like she did when we first met, "let's go home. To the house we built. The house where authenticity isn't a slur, but a way of life." We walked out of that ballroom of a restaurant with every eye on us. Outside, the evening air hit my face like cold water, and for the first time in hours, I didn't feel like I had to stay small or keep the peace. In the months that followed, Julian was convicted on multiple fraud charges and lost his business license for good. The restaurant didn't just close. It was dismantled, its prime property sold to pay back the creditors he had cheated. I learned the most important lesson of my life that night. Respect isn't something you earn by staying small, and keeping peace is something you demand by standing up for what's yours and never apologizing for the life you built with your own hands. Sarah and I still have our Sunday dinners at our modest house, the one with the hardwood floors I installed myself. We don't talk about that anniversary much, but we both remember the night we learned that silence isn't golden when it lets people walk all over the things that matter most. The restaurant is gone, but the blue-collar loyalty I have for my wife and the legal power she uses to protect the truth are stronger than ever. In the end, It wasn't the refinement or the money that won. It was the authentic life of two people who knew that a man's worth isn't measured by a chef's insult, but by the steady hand he offers to the people he loves. And that is a conclusion no one can take away from us. This story is over. Everyone leave with that thought.